Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, you guys are well. So, we're back with a new episode of the GDM Show. We're back with Brother Sabur, as you can see across the table, mashallah. How are you, Brother Sabur?
I'm good.
Good, mashallah. So, what is the topic of today that we're discussing?
Well, the topic of today is actually something I've been reflecting about. It's an ayah of the Quran in which Allah says that basically the disbeliever is producing arguments against us, as in against God, and forgetting his own creation, right? So this is just something I've been reflecting about a lot. I mean, as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of atheist books.
You've lined up your library.
Well, it's not exactly a library, but what I wanted to do was to show that when surveying through these atheist books, there's something that really jumps out at me, and possibly yourself when you're doing research, is that they really actually logically inconsistent with their own worldview. So, for example, if you look at, can you just pass me the God delusion? Yeah, the God delusion, right?
It's going to topple over everything.
That's all right, no problem,
Yeah,
right?
no.
So you got the God delusion, right?
Yep.
Now, within the God delusion, there's actually 10 chapters.
Yes.
Right? Of these 10 chapters, he goes through a deeply religious non-believer, God hypothesis, arguments against God's existence, blah, 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 blah. 10 chapters, right?
Yep.
A very big book. How many of these chapters do you think actually deal with the issue of God's existence and God's non-existence?
I don't know, tell us how many chapters.
Think about it, 10 chapters, and there's a book this big.
Well, it should be 10 technically, right?
Technically,
Yeah.
right? But it's actually only 2. It's chapter 3, which are arguments for God, and then he basically mocks them, and chapter 4. So in chapter 4, he's giving arguments for atheism. And the rest of the book is all his emotional rhetoric of the damage that religion actually does.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a kind of a gauge that the fraction amount of time that he spends on arguments for and against God's existence is small compared to his actual hatred of religion.
Yeah. No, that's self-evidently true from this book itself. I mean, anyone that's read the book, they probably know that most of it is empty rhetoric and his emotional, like you said, his hatred towards religion, which is coming across. And you're right, there's not much as far as content is concerned. Many of the arguments he makes are quite flawed, they're quite elementary in many cases. You know, they've been refuted widely by many people. So, yeah, that's true, I guess. What was the other point that you need to make regarding
Well, the other interesting thing is that in this book, Dawkins basically agrees that there has to be a first cause, right? So he doesn't have an issue with the first cause. He says the first cause can't be a skyhook, right? It can't be something complex. It needs to be more like a crane, something simple which can explain things. So basically, like evolution is an explanation in biology. In physics, we also need a comparative explanation. The interesting thing is, although he agrees there has to be something can't come from nothing, and that there has to be a first cause which terminates the regress, right? He still agrees with Krauss that the universe can come from nothing.
Yeah.
That's being logically inconsistent.
It's being inconsistent. I've seen him do that before as well. That's not only on one point, it's on several points, right? But that is something big. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it. Either you believe the universe can come from supposed nothing, as Krauss defines nothing, which isn't nothing, or that there is a cause. Right. Now, one quick point I want to make regarding his point that he makes regarding a cause. He claims, as far as I understand, he claims that the cause must be very complex, right? Which is quite ridiculous, because why does he assume such a thing? I'm guessing the only reason you would assume such a thing is if you believe that the cause is also physical and is made up of parts, right? But that's not the God we believe in. That's not the creator as we understand it.
Well, that's not the only issue. What it basically is it's God by... atheism by any means necessary, right? So whatever explanation can shut out the existence of God, let's go with it. Now, I just want to read a really interesting passage. This is from Richard Dawkins' The Blind Watchmaker. So just to give you a bit of evolution of the sort of books he read, of the books that he's actually wrote. So he wrote The Blind Watchmaker. He had The Selfish Gene, and this is the Mammoth book, which came afterwards. But if you guess, this was like the sort of the genesis of the God delusion. So he was making these arguments first. There's something quite interesting. He says, natural selection is the blind watchmaker. Blind because it does not see ahead, does not plan consequences, has no purpose in view, yet the living results of natural selection overwhelmingly impress us with the appearance of design as if by a master watchman, impress us with the illusion of design and planning. The purpose of this book is to resolve this paradox to the satisfaction of the reader, and the purpose of this chapter is to further impress the reader with the power of the illusion of design. We shall look at a particular example and shall conclude that when it comes to complexity and beauty of design, Paley hardly began to state the case. Now, what he's referring to in terms of Paley is William Paley,
yep.
right? So William Paley came up with the famous watch example. If you find a watch in the desert,
yep.
can you say that it came together by chance,
yep.
right? So he's basically saying, no, actually Paley was wrong. It's actually a blind watchmaker, which is natural selection.
Yep.
And also Paley didn't understand just how beautiful and designed the illusion of design actually is in the world. The thing which I found interesting about this book is he makes one massive elementary mistake, right? Which is that, imagine if I say to you, Imran, this mobile phone,
yep.
right? This mobile phone, the way it works is this. You press the button, right? And the lights come on. Then you swipe the screen,
yep.
you click on an app, this is how you use it. If it breaks down, this is how you fix
yep.
it. This is how the mechanics work. And I go over all of the explanation of just how detailed and complex this phone is and how it is intricately put together. And then I say to you, therefore there's no Samsung. Because I've explained to you how
yep.
this mobile phone works mechanically,
yep.
physically,
yep.
therefore there is no
company
design.
There is no
right?
Place, yep.
It's really sad to see that he put in such an effort into explaining the complexity and the beauty of living organisms and natural selection and evolution. And at the end of it, his simple statement is that there is no God, simply because he's explained how life develops and he's explained the complexity and the beauty of life.
Yeah.
So I don't know why people take him so seriously when he can make elementary mistakes like
there's no consistency, and I agree with you, and this is a big problem. I mean, he does the same when it comes to, for example, the DNA,
yep.
right? Now, as far as information is concerned, they make the same argument. You see, let's take this simple example. You know when archaeologists go into caves, right? They see wall paintings and drawings from the past. Now, when an archaeologist goes, and say you're an archaeologist, and you go into a cave and you see these lines across the cave, just like 4 markings going that horizontally. Now, looking at that, when you observe it, you look at there's some elementary information there, and you'll conclude or you'll infer that there was somebody here who put these lines in the cave. But yet, when you go then and you apply the same sort of method of making an inference to the best explanation to the DNA, which consists of about 3.5 billion base pairs, specifically arranged, precisely arranged, but you will conclude chance or necessity. The same consistency or criteria is not applied. Why not? When you look at simple forms of information, you conclude there's somebody there or someone who's left it there, but the same criteria is not applied to when it comes to something far more complex.
And this is something which, when we look at this, we say Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
Allah is the greatest.
Of course, because you're still being rational.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, they'll look at any explanation which fits their worldview, no matter how logically inconsistent. So Christopher Hitchens in God is Not Great, he'll have a sort of argument against that. He'll say order is actually an illusion, right? It's kind of like a mechanic. If you walk into a mechanic's sort of workplace, you'll see all these parts and you'll be like, this is all junk. The mechanic will look at this and say it's order. He knows where he's put the things, he knows how they work. So they'll say order is actually an illusion, and this is the argument that Christopher Hitchens
subjective.
makes.
You seem to see it there.
Exactly.
That's what they say.
I'm sure that they do realize, but their followers probably don't.
Yeah.
This leads to a massive problem in terms of knowledge. If order is an illusion, think about it. What's the inference if order is an illusion?
Well, it's a big problem. 1, you can't do science anymore. Science means nothing. 2, you can never conclude that, because then your reasoning will be an illusion as well. There's no order in your reasoning or your rational faculties. It's all random, right? So our discussion doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes sense then.
You can put it this way. If our mind is a product of not a designer who has ordered it in a certain fashion, but actually order is an illusion, then you can't actually say that even your sentences are orderly or your cognitive faculties can actually even reach truth.
But I don't think the sound scientists, I mean, they won't go that far. I mean, we know, you got the examples such as Paul Davies, right? One of the most eminent physicists of the more recent times. He's acknowledged that there are laws out there. There are laws of physics. And he asked, I think it was in the Templeton Address, he pointed out, he said, the burning question is, where did the laws of physics come from? Also, he further followed this up by saying, or asking, how can there be laws which guide these random gases to intelligence, to consciousness, to minds? How does this work? It doesn't make sense. There's order there, like you're saying. There are laws there. We perceive them, but they're there. Now, some, like you're saying, will go as far as denying these laws completely and saying they're an illusion because they know that's the only way of getting around the question or the point, which is that if there's laws, then there must be a legislator, right?
A lawgiver.
A lawgiver. It makes sense. It's necessary.
I think, I mean, because we're sort of running out of time, I want to sort of start wrapping up the show now, but I think we need a different approach to when it comes to atheists, because it's not about logic. I can go up to someone and explain to them all the benefits of drinking mineral water and saying, look, give up fizzy drinks. But if that person is determined and they love fizzy drinks, right, there's no way they're going to accept it. So I think one of the things is that we need to explain to them the importance of the question of God, the impact it has on your life and your afterlife, and for them to take this more seriously, because at the moment it's just a cat and mouse game. Whatever explanation or arguments of God's existence we give them, they will always try and find some sort of loophole and say, well, there's maybe a chance, you know, that in the future they'll discover that design is a product purely of some other natural process that we don't understand or whatever, right? So I think we need a new strategy.
And on that note, I think we'll conclude today's segment, today's video. And inshallah, brothers and sisters, make sure you tune in next time and we'll have another episode and we'll try to implement the new approach you're speaking about as well, inshallah. Anyway, Jazakallah khair, bro, for coming on.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.